Hi there, Ronnie here, coming at you with a video. I ran a little fantasy game using Savage Worlds and the Fantasy Companion. I ended up using the map from Shinetar, but I didn't. I used it just to have a map. I didn't use the actual geography of Shinetar. For obvious reasons, I wasn't using. It was just a map to have, and they enjoyed the game. I'll probably do a video on that as well, but they enjoyed the game. So I was talking to them about next time I come up, I might run something in a different genre. And we were discussing, what kind of genre, and we'd sort of settled on steampunk. And as much as my sort of initial instinct is to take up Castle Falkenstein, they're so now used to Savage Worlds. I'm going to bring up some of my Savage World stuff, steampunk settings, and run it using that. Now, my daughter Saffron, her fiance Jamie, he had never played a role-playing game before, and I have to say he took to it like a duck to water. He was, first it was a little 2-night game. First session he was kind of cautious. The second session he was right into it, which was great. I enjoyed it. It was good. Anyway, one of the reasons he wanted to do steampunk, or another genre, he was intrigued, is because he was under the impression that RPGs were very much in the realm of fantasy, and by fantasy I mean sort of high fantasy, Middle Earth, D&D, that sort of thing. And it hadn't really clicked with him until we sort of talked about Savage Worlds and stuff. It hadn't really clicked with him that there were role-playing games in other genre. And it's got me thinking. It's undeniable that if you really look at it, fantasy is the big hitter. The most successful RPGs are fantasy based. And there's probably more fantasy RPGs than any other genre. And I wonder if Jamie's thought was unique, or is there a disconnect? Is there an assumption about RPGs that they are, when you talk about a role-playing game, people immediately think fantasy and don't assume that there are other genre out there. And I wonder, if that's the case, what can we do as a community, as a hobby community? What can we do to get over that mental assumption and let people see that there's not just fantasy out there. There's science fiction, there's horror, there's steampunk, there's superheroes, there's modern action, there's westerns, there's pretty much, post-apocalyptic, cyberpunk, urban fantasy. If there's a fictional genre out there, there's an RPG for it. So, is the assumption fantasy? And if it is, how do we get across the idea that there's more out there than just fantasy?